NATO is very active throughout the Middle East, particularly in Iraq and Syria, where some of the most horrific things are taking place right now because of the rise of ISIS. How did ISIS, as you see it from your experience working in those countries through your organization, come about?
Well, it came about, to just summarize that in a nutshell, from the instability, the political instability of Iraq, a country that has been going through a hard time since 2003 when the US and its allies put down Saddam Hussein. Three factions, Sunni, Shiites, and Kurd, that are trying to settle their scores, old scores. Then you have the Syria civil war that started with the Arab Spring, that started by a revolt from the local Syrian asking for more democracy, and it turned out ugly when it wouldn't resolve itself. In Syria, as of last year, was over 900 different rebel groups fighting between each other and against Assad. Out of it emerged the ISIS. And from Iraq, the Sunni of Iraq, being under pressure by the Shiites that are the stronghold now in Iraq, have decided to put their attention and support towards the ISIS because they're Sunni as well. And that has kind of given, I would say, the strength that ISIS needed last year to really came in the forefront scene of creating a new country.
ISIS has no regard for the traditional borders, you would say, of the countries in the Middle East. What's the history behind that? What is significant about those borders historically, and also ISIS's complete disregard for them?
ISIS wants basically to reestablish a territory where only their ideology and their interpretation of their religion, Islam, is the right one. Which means that the amazing diversity of the Middle East will not be respected under them. And they want to eliminate all of that. So historically speaking, they are certainly moving away from that, and that's why it's a big, big threat for the entire region.
When you look specifically at the people suffering the most, there's a real threat that the Middle East will have no more Christians in a short amount of time. Is that a real threat, or do you think that there's a way to get through this?
Iraq, many observers would say it's too late. There's less than 200,000 Christians in Iraq. Half of them are displaced. It means they have lost their homes, and they're leaving Iraq right now. As we speak, every day they're leaving if they can. And so yes, it's too late in Iraq. And yes, they've been persecuted because of their faith, on top of being victim of war. If you go in Syria, we're not ready to say that yet. Even though more and more Christians are attacked by ISIS, in general, Christians are still remaining, even though about 500,000 have left Syria. There's still another 1.5 million that are in Syria. They still see that there might be a hope. The only way for Christians to remain if there's peace. If there's no peace in the next year or 2 years, more will leave. More will be forced to leave, like everybody else. And so, in that sense, it's very dangerous.
You mentioned that the instability of these countries, in a sense, created ISIS. What do you think the solution is to this conflict? How can ISIS be defeated?
Well, it's going to be defeated when the local people get along. And it's the local people that have to decide what they want. So if Assad is ready to speak with other Syrians to develop a new Syria, a stable Syria, then that will be helpful. Why? Because people will focus into a new Syria, wanting to defeat the enemy, which will be ISIS. Same thing in Iraq. Some specialists say that if the day that will happen, up to 4 to 6 months, ISIS will be defeated, because they will not be able to feed on the kind of rumbling of all the wars from both countries. Peace is the best solution. Not war, no more bombing, it's peace, and that's why a lot of people in the church, the Holy Father and others are advocating to develop ingenuity, diplomacy, to get peace in both countries the fastest possible in order to defeat by itself ISIS.